Doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. Money's greatest intrinsic value is its ability to give you control over your time. Wealth is what you don't see. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. Savings can be created by spending less. You can also create savings by earning more. Investing is not the study of finance. It's the study of how people behave with money. The purpose of investing isn't to minimize boredom. It's to maximize returns. Luck and risk are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. There are many things never worth risking, no matter the potential gain. The only way to truly grasp personal finance is to make it as real, as tangible, as personal to your own life as possible. Financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. Go out of your way to find humility when things are going right and patience when they're not. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. Every decision about money is not just about money. It's wrapped up in your background, your personal history, your values. No one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. The idea of having enough might look like conservatism, leaving opportunity and potential on the table. I don't think that's right. Enough is realizing that the opposite, an insatiable desire for more, will push you to the point of regret. Risk is what's left over when you think you've thought of everything. The world is filled with people who look modest but are actually wealthy, and people who look wealthy who live at the razor's edge of insolvency. Optimism is a belief that the odds of a good outcome are in your favor over time, even when there will be setbacks along the way. History is the study of change, ironically used as a map of the future. You are one person in a game with 7 billion others. You are not always right, and you are not always wrong. There are a million ways to get wealthy and plenty of books on how to become rich. But there's only one way to stay wealthy, some combination of frugality and paranoia. Good investing is not necessarily about making good decisions. It's about consistently not screwing up. Investing is an epic battle between your ego, your desires, your needs, and the ability to sit there and take it when you realize you're wrong. The most important part of every plan is planning on your plan, not going according to plan. When most people say they want to be a millionaire, what they might actually mean is, I'd like to spend $1 million, which is literally the opposite of being a millionaire. Past a certain level of income, what you need is just what sits below your ego. Compounding only works if you can give an asset years and years to grow. It's like planting oak trees. A year of growth will never show much progress. 10 years can make a meaningful difference, and 50 years can create something absolutely extraordinary. The real measure of wealth is how much you'd be worth if you lost all your money. Spend extravagantly on the things you love and cut mercilessly on the things you don't. Progress happens too slowly to notice. Setbacks happen too fast to ignore. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. The idea that everyone should devote themselves to an unending race of ambition is a pernicious lie. Having an edge and surviving are two different things. The first requires the second. Long tails, the farthest ends of a distribution of outcomes, have tremendous influence in finance, where a small number of events can account for the majority of outcomes. When you have more than you need, building more wealth becomes a game with a score, but not a purpose. Recklessness is what happens when you're up so much you feel invincible, or down so much you feel indifferent. Nothing can be the most important thing you can do. The more you want something to be true, the more likely you are to believe a story that overestimates the odds of it being true. You don't have to understand your emotions. You just need to understand how they influence your actions. An important nuance of investing is realizing that a risk is not synonymous with bad. An underpinning of psychology is that people are poor forecasters of their future selves. There are a million things in the world that you deeply care about and I've never given a moment's thought to. In finance, you want to play a game that's survived every catastrophe that's come at it? It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. There is no other field where lessons learned 2,000 or 200 years ago are so directly applicable today. The trick when dealing with failure is arranging your financial life so that a failure is just a disappointment and not ruinous. More than I want big returns, I want to be financially unbreakable. The biggest single point of failure with money is a sole reliance on a paycheck to fund short-term spending needs, with no savings to create a gap between what you think your expenses are and what they might be in the future. Every bit of savings is like taking a point in the future that would have been owned by someone else and giving it back to yourself. Pessimism isn't just more common than optimism, it also sounds smarter. History is filled with people who knew the price of everything but the value of nothing. Endurance is key in the journey of investing. Endurance in downturns and crashes. The ability to do what you want when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is priceless. It is the highest dividend money pays. Good news doesn't make for good stories. It's why pessimism sounds smarter. Becoming wealthy has more to do with restraint and tenacity than it does brilliance or luck. Planning on and for change is just about the most important thing in investing. The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. There is a difference between being in the top ones of intelligence and the top ones of rational thinking. It's hard to learn about money because money is not totally about math. It's about behavior. The only way to handle risk in a way that doesn't let it mess up your plans is to make its potential irrelevant. It's hard to plan for the future when you aren't sure of your needs, goals, or abilities years from now. Every job looks easy when you're not the one doing it. The easiest way to manage risk is with cash. The best way to adjust for risk is with time. The more extreme the outcome, the less predictable future outcomes become. Thinking about risk forces you to think about what will prevent you from investing in those assets long enough to let compounding work its magic. Few things matter more with money than understanding your own time horizon and not being persuaded by the actions and behaviors of people playing different games than you are. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.1 of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80 of how you think the world works. Be nicer and less flashy. No one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. More than I want big returns, I want to sleep well at night. People do some crazy things with money, but no one is crazy. The world is probably going to get better in the future, but there's a good chance it will first get worse in ways no one expects or can predict. Room for error lets you endure a range of potential outcomes, and endurance lets you stick around long enough to let the odds of benefiting from a low probability outcome fall in your favor. The ability to stick around for a long time without wiping out or being forced to give up is what makes the biggest difference in cumulative outcomes. Savings without a spending goal gives you options and flexibility, the ability to wait and the opportunity to pounce. It gives you time to think. When volatility is a good thing because it enables compounding, the idea of reducing it because it feels better can be hazardous to your wealth. Every dollar you save is like an employee. Over the decades, you may accumulate many thousands of dollars worth of employees. Their job is to make you money. Tails drive everything. Few people in the history of the world have had as big of an impact on humanity as Gutenberg, Einstein, and whoever invented the wheel. Avoiding the extreme tails is more important than picking the correct door, even if it reduces the odds of looking smart. Seduction towards big goals and away from fears has a wicked track record. There's a reason most of the investing world doesn't implement what it knows is right. It's hard. It's not that we're stupid or uninformed. It's quite the opposite. We're wired to be rational, but being rational about money is hard. A good rule of thumb for a lot of things in life is that everything harder than it looks. It sounds trivial to say, save for a rainy day, but it is also a form of endurance that's easy to overlook. Savings in the bank that earns 0 interest might actually generate an enormous return if it keeps you from panicking during a market fall. Too often people measure their saving rate by the gap between their income and their spending. It's often better to measure it by the gap between your ego and your income. Don't aim to be coldly rational when making financial decisions. Aim to just be pretty reasonable. Being reasonable means you increase your chances of winding up in a place you're okay with by giving yourself room for error. Every money reward has a price beyond the financial fee you can see and count. A key point about opportunity cost is that it's a sibling of luck. The hard part is that the ability to do something isn't supposed to be what allows you to do something. Independence, to me, doesn't mean you'll stop working. It means you only do the work you like with people you like at the times you want for as long as you want. Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. The ability to do what you want when you want with who you want, for as long as you want, pays the highest dividend that exists in finance. If you have to attach dollars to something to think it's valuable, you might overlook the most valuable things. Your personal reality is a sample size of one. From one person's experience, you can't draw conclusions about a world whose history is driven by things that happen once in millions or billions of instances. Money makes people happy, and more money can make you happier up to a point. Wealth is not a number or an amount. It's an attitude and the belief that you are part of a world that is full of resources for the taking. The price of success is the risk of failure. There is no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need.